Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. The rematch is happening. Anthony Joshua's promoter Eddie Hearn has confirmed on his social media platforms, after meetings with AJ, Rob Mick and the management team in New York, we have today triggered the contracted rematch clause with Andy Ruiz Jr. The fight will take place in November, December at a venue to be confirmed shortly. Eddie Hearn's statement on social media. So this was a big question. Was the rematch going to happen at all? Was it going to happen immediately? Would Andy Ruiz Jr. get to have a voluntary in between? Some of these things fans have been talking about, but we know it is going to be an immediate rematch now. And I guess the point of where is this going to be? It is actually, from the optics, it does matter. There has been talk, after the fight from Eddie Hearn that the UK was a possible destination for a rematch. And I know some Anthony Joshua fans have come in behind that pretty strong. But there is something to be said about, fighting again in the United States and tidying up that mess for Anthony Joshua. And there's no guarantees he wins the rematch. It's kind of, Andy Ruiz Jr. gets the opportunity to get the belts outright, get out from any contracted clauses. He can have the opportunity to have those major titles in his pocket and go off and do what he wants if he gets a win. Anthony Joshua can seek redemption and he can try get his titles back and move on with the rest of his career. There's a lot hinging on this performance by Joshua. And I guess where it is, I think that's important. If it is in the United States, that would be a good look, I think. But, it doesn't mean that it's going to happen. The UK, having it there, Joshua is comfortable fighting there. But then that gives rise, to more of that narrative of he can only win in the United Kingdom. Allegations of having judges in Matchroom's pocket, all that sort of stuff that he can only fight in the UK. I think the US would be a good look, but, it's hard to say what will happen. Andy Ruiz Jr. himself, and here's a story from Sky Sports, he would like to have the rematch in Mexico. I'd love to be in Mexico. There's never been a heavyweight champion in Mexico, so I'd love to have the rematch there. I'm still pinching myself that this is true. All the hard work and dedication have made my dreams come true. So, is it likely that a rematch would be in Mexico? I'm not sure. I think in terms of a historical context, if Anthony Joshua was to go to Mexico, fight Andy Ruiz on what would be considered Ruiz's home turf, even though he is American, I think that would be something that, Joshua would get a lot of credit for taking the rematch in Mexico. But how likely is it? And I've seen a lot of commentary from some fans indicating that Andy Ruiz Jr. holds all the cards here with the rematch. And I'm just not so sure that's true, because remember, Ruiz Jr. was the late notice opponent. Anthony Joshua having 3 belts, Ruiz coming in at 5 weeks notice. All the contracted stuff would have been in Joshua's favour. So it's likely they have complete or near complete promotional control over the second fight, just because, obviously they had all the safeguards in the contract. But it remains to be seen what was in the contract, and sometimes, it has been proven over time that fighters get overlooked and they aren't as diligent in some of the contractual stuff because they believe that they are going to win and it isn't going to matter. So it remains to be seen what happens there. But Mexico, is it likely? I wouldn't have thought so. I would say that the UK, given some of the signals, that is a potential, but maybe they do it again in the United States. And from an optics standpoint, and from Joshua having an American nightmare, trying to redeem himself in front of fans, and I think that's a bigger fight the second time around in America too, because Andy Ruiz Jr. has propelled himself into the sporting consciousness of more sports fans and the wider public in the United States now. And if you don't believe me, this is a clip from Andy Ruiz's Instagram where he's about to go on Jimmy Kimmel.
Yeah, today I'm gonna be on set on Jimmy Kimmel's show. Look what he got me by surprise. Wow. Thank you, Jimmy. Wow.
So the fact that he's now getting this level of exposure, it probably makes the fight a bigger deal in the United States the second time around. It was already going to be a highly anticipated rematch anyway. But I guess you start to think about some of those things, what's going to happen different in the rematch, and what are some of the adjustments that both fighters will make. And I did touch on some of the things that Anthony Joshua would need to do in a video the other day, and I'll link to it at the end of this video. Can Anthony Joshua respond to a crushing defeat? that is obviously raises a number of questions, not just about the physical side and the different ring sort of stuff that he needs to work on, but also the mental aspect. This would have been a huge crushing blow. Even though he said it's a minor setback, it's more than a minor setback. But for Ruiz Jr., I mean, some of the things that Joshua's been talked about him and criticised for with the media appearances and all the glitz, the glamour, all the hangers-on, all that sort of side of things, Andy Ruiz Jr. will now have to actively try to stop himself being sucked into that side of things as well, because all of a sudden, from going from a guy from a couple of months ago, he even said himself that he thought people had forgotten about him, to now go to, being on Jimmy Kimmel, being flavor of the month, having the media and the limelight, people wanting a piece of you. And this is also something here. Snickers is interested in having a sponsorship with Andy Ruiz Jr. So you're going to have all these people piling in, all these things over the top. He's going to have to, with his team, work to try, when they go into camp and with the commitments ahead of a rematch, try to block out some of the stuff which obviously some people have said was potentially an issue for Anthony Joshua. So it will be reversed to some extent, or Ruiz will get more of a slice of some of what Joshua had to experience in the run-up to many of his fights. But there were a number of people that didn't believe this rematch would happen. George Foreman, he was advising Anthony Joshua not to take it. He was saying they're going to have to go back to the gym. I think he'll be a greater fighter, Joshua, now. If he goes back and gets his mind together, he's going to be even better. But right now, he better learn to box and he better get a good manager. I'll do it. Then later saying, he's young. Get in the gym, clear his mind. When you get knocked out, it's almost take a year before you get yourself back together. It's like you broke your leg, but it's really the jaw. You need to recuperate, go back and start all over again. He can become champion again. Make him fight him in England where the weather suits his body. He'll get the title back. Leave Ruiz alone. Leave him alone. So George Foreman, not so convinced that a rematch immediately would be something that would be advantageous for Joshua. But obviously he's taking it now. And George Groves, obviously a former champion himself, has said Ruiz was more experienced in the struggles. A straight rematch, bounce back, get your titles back straight into a rematch. Because if he's honest, he'll know he wasn't switched on. He wasn't with it. He was concentrating on the wrong things. He needs to concentrate more on boxing. And that's been sentiment that fans have obviously been expressing since the loss. But there has been a search by fans to work out what went wrong and how do you fix it. And that's natural in the wake of a defeat, especially one that's high profile as this. And obviously, he can adjust. He can probably do things differently. But that doesn't mean that the result will be different the second time around. We have Deontay Wilder. He's also been piling in here with his thoughts. And he says, I don't think he's mentally strong. He's not built for that. I don't see him taking the rematch. I think he's got 7 months to take the rematch. He's got until December. I don't think he wants to take it no more. He's mentally weak. When I read that he had a sports psychologist, that was red flags right there. Deontay Wilder, giving credit as always to Anthony Joshua, his division rival. Daniel Dubois, he's also been coming in behind this whole thing because there has been, in my view, a sort of snap from some fans just to sort of automatically throw Joshua in the bin. And I've mentioned this in recent videos, but one loss doesn't mean that you can't fight anymore. It means that you probably have things to work on. And Dubois has come out, and he's obviously a Frank Warren promoted fighter. And I've seen Frank Warren expressing similar sentiments, but Dubois says it's one defeat, and it's crazy that he is being told he is finished. Most boxers can only dream of what he has achieved as an amateur and professional. I have heard the talk of him not being right before the fight, but the only people who know if that's true are AJ and those closest to him. Apart from when he knocked Ruiz Jr. down, nothing seemed to go right whenever he tried in the ring. He didn't seem there. The third round became a very bad one for him, and I'm wondering if he may have been concussed from those knockdowns. Bottom line, Ruiz did the business, but only AJ knows if he has the appetite to come back. Daniel Dubois statements. He's got a fight coming up with his stablemate Nathan Gorman, who's also been sort of saying, look, people have been criticizing me for my body, but I think I can beat Dubois because I've got the goods, like Andy Ruiz Jr. And maybe some people will give pause for thought on those statements from Gorman to go, maybe he does have a better shot against Daniel Dubois. He is a good boxer after all. But getting back to Anthony Joshua in this rematch, they clearly feel that Anthony Joshua is not done, that he can bounce back, that he has something left, and that he can overcome whatever happened in this first fight, be it just, that third round that really ultimately started the rot, or if there were other issues or whatever. They clearly feel that he can get it done, he can come back, and he can defeat Andy Ruiz Jr. and get his titles back. Certainly remains to be seen what will happen. And I think after a second fight, depending on what happens there, the performance by Joshua, but also Ruiz, who'll have a full camp for this rematch, we'll get a better gauge of whether Anthony Joshua just had an off night, or if actually Andy Ruiz Jr. has Anthony Joshua's number. We'll have to see. What do you make of it all? Drop a comment loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.